Hello beautiful and welcome back to my channel and welcome to this video that's gonna be a blast from the past. We are going back down memory lane and we are taking back a video concept from actually 4 years ago. You remember Beauty YouTube in 2018? Pepper Ridge Farm, remember? So we are gonna take one of the concepts that I did way back in the days and we're gonna do them again today, which is that I am gonna be telling you my favorite shade in different eyeshadow palettes. I'm gonna be letting you know why this one is my favorite shade, how it came to be. Let's just chat about makeup. That's what I really want my channel to be about. If you haven't been here before, please do consider subscribing. I do upload quite a lot of videos. I try to upload around 5 videos a week, just talking about makeup, chatting about makeup, using some makeup, and yeah, usually we have a good time here. So the palettes that I'm going to be talking about are literally just palettes that are in front of me, plus I pulled a couple of palettes that I know that I either have a favorite shade in or that I have several favorite shades in. So we're gonna do, I think this is around like maybe 10-12 palettes, something like that. You probably saw it in the title. I don't know, but I am gonna be linking all of these palettes down below in case you're interested in seeing more about these palettes. And I think I have videos on all of these palettes actually on my channel. I'm gonna swatch them all on my arm and then I'm gonna show you at the end, I'm gonna show you a close-up of all of these shades together, basically like showing you what would a palette look like with all of my favorite shades. I do have quite a large makeup collection, so these are not all my eyeshadow palettes, but I thought this could be a fun collection of smaller palettes, bigger palettes, indie brands, mainstream brands, newer palettes, older palettes, just a little bit of a fun mix. And I, like I said, did this video back in 2018. Yeah, blast from the past. And I thought it's just a fun way of just incorporating a little bit of like, for me, what the roots of my like makeup channel or the roots of my YouTube journey into like today, because I'm trying to do a little bit of a low buy. So I just want to dive into my collection and maybe I can teach myself like what is it that makes a shade a favorite shade for me, because I know that I have definitely changed my mind about quite a lot of things these past like 4 years. Let's be honest, 2018 was 4 years ago. Yeah, I know, I'm scared too. I feel like it was like last year, but no, 4 years ago. You feel old yet? Because I feel old. But basically just breaking it down to you, why are these my favorite shades? How come this one is my favorite shade? And why would I reach for this one over other shades? And maybe you can do something similar when you're playing with your makeup and when you're opening an eyeshadow palette next time. What is your favorite shade in this palette? How come this is your favorite shade? And how can that information help you in your future purchasing decision? Let's actually start with my palette. This is the Oden's Eye and Angelica Nyqvist Hela palette. This is the palette that I did with Oden's Eye. This is I love this palette. This is so well used. And I will say that when I started doing this palette, the shade that is actually my favorite shade was not my favorite shade in, let's say, production. I was thinking I was gonna love this dark green maybe the most, or even this like multi-chrome down here, or maybe like this like bright green shimmers over here. But the shade that is my absolute favorite is Rebirth. This is the one that I've been using the most. It has the like such a dip in it. This is a very pigmented and very bright pastel yellow. I'm gonna do it like this. I will put all the shades here. Can you see anything? Am I gonna try to actually make like decent swatches so you can see anything? Like I said, I'll show you a close-up at the end. But this is how my makeup taste has changed throughout these past couple of years. I have become not only into colorful makeup and dramatic makeup, I went into contrasts. I want to have really light makeup together with really dark makeup. So I want to have something dark and I want to have something light. And I realized that light pastel-y mattes have become my absolute favorite contrasting shade. So I reach for this one so often. Pastels have become just my favorite thing. Not on their own, but together with other things. And yeah, just been loving this one. And then we have the Beauty Bay's Earthy palette. This is such a beautiful palette, and part of me kind of want to pick this one that is the sea foamy mint matte, but if you can see, compared to this one, it is just not light enough to actually be like a bright inner corner for me. I would have liked this to have even just a smidge more white in it. I'm very particular about my shades, as you can tell, but I think my favorite is this one. I think it's called Shamrock. Yeah, Shamrock. It is just such a bright matte green, and I cannot help to be like just smitten with really bright saturated matte shades. It still just makes me super, super happy to use shades like that and to base entire looks on that. There's just something about having a really bright matte and just centering everything in your look around that. And yeah, I think this is one of the best like super, super bright greens in my collection, and this would make a good look together, like these two. Speaking of, here is a mainstream palette that's fairly new to my collection, and this is the Nouveau palette by Anastasia Beverly Hills. When I use this palette, I have to say I'm just very, very impressed with the quality of this palette, and especially the mattes. This one here, it's called Liberty. It is also a green matte, but this is just such a nice, like, you want it to be just a little bit green, but you can tell it's just a totally different tone from the other one. But it is a great matte shadow, and it is just a little, you can tell, muted and murky and grungy and still very buildable and blendable, so you can do a really nice deepened up crease with just this shade and no other shades. And this is the kind of shade that, like, when I open this palette, I immediately am like, okay, so what shade am I using together with this one? Because it's such a nice shade, and a good matte will always sell me a palette. That's just not something that I used to say when I started out my channel, but right now, a good matte will sell me a palette, especially if it's got a unique undertone. This one I picked out especially because I have another one of those really light shades. This is the Retro palette by Natasha Denona. I've used this so much, and especially for this shade here. It is called Mod, and it is this almost white pink. It is falling on my lap. It is just such a beautiful color. And let me see if I can just put it on here. This live swatching. This used to be something I did all the time. Wow, it's not showing much here. This is why I actually stopped doing live swatching, because it doesn't show you anything. Because you would never, first of all, this skin, it's not like your eyeballs. And I would never use my eyeshadow without a primer. Never ever. And I would never use my finger for matte shadow. There's just so many things that are like not reflecting correctly with like live swatching. So I never do that, because honestly it doesn't tell you anything. It doesn't tell you anything about anything. Swatches can show you a color, but at least like let me do it properly. But for the sake of the video, we're doing like this. This is an almost white pink, and it is just the most beautiful inner corner highlight for me, who loves a matte inner corner highlight, and I've reached for this so much. When I'm doing a warm look, I will reach for this one. When I'm doing a cool look, I'll reach for that one. I thought we'd bring in this one because I thought we're doing too many mattes. So let's actually talk about, this is the Frosted Flakes palette by Glamlite. What makes me really crave a shimmer? And that is when a shimmer is bringing something to the table, like this orangey shimmer that I am having a hard time finding in some other palettes. So this shimmer is an orange shimmer. And I will say, for some reason, it is really hard to get an orange metallic or an orange shimmer in a palette, and I don't really know why. And there are certain palettes that have that one shimmer that I like crave, like this one with the orangey one. That just is the shade that I would reach for. And I will say overall, this is a really good palette. And also this like bluey metallic here is beautiful. But an orange shimmer that is not gold, that is not bronze, that is not like, you know, neutral, it's really hard to find. And this one is a really, really pretty one. Here's another one of the Oden's Eye palettes that I really love. This is SolMåne 2. This is super easy. This one is it's everything that I love in a color, not only for makeup, but for clothing, home decor, details, pens, a car. In this yellowy orange, love it. I love an orange that is leaning so yellow that you're like, is it a yellow or is it an orange? That's what I love. And this one is called Warm Light. And it is just this beautiful, super bright matte that I'm just putting all over myself, to be honest. I'm a mess. I am a mess. Did I forget how to swatch? I think I did. So this is what it looks like. It is just a beautiful, bright, yellowy orange. It just makes me super happy. What is this swatch? Did you used to watch me for swatches? I think I lost my touch. a bright orange like this. And there's another palette. Let's actually talk about that one. There's another palette in the Springs by Colourpop that has that exact same color. But here we come to you can see the color here. It's like very similar, this one here. It's very, very similar to the kind of shade that's in here. But in this palette, I actually prefer Soaked even more because Soaked is, and say it with me, an almost white blue that is very, very pigmented when you like pack it on. So you can use it as a lid shade, you can use it as an inner corner, and it's just such a stunning, let me see so I don't get some orange in it. It's just such a stunning matte shade that just really makes this palette something that I quite honestly have reached for a lot. Live swatching mattes. That's what my channel has become. Can you start to see a pattern? The one that I told you before, so if you're paying attention, you already know. A good matte will sell me a palette, unless it's a really unique shimmer. But like these kind of mattes that I like to like build my looks around, love it. Okay, let's talk about when a really good matte is just something that I have a weak spot for, which is red mattes. I have such a weak spot for red mattes, and you actually have a very reddish brown here that's called Earth. Then you have a very reddish color here that's called Clay. But my absolute favorite is this one that is called Soil. This is the Classical Paradise by Ace Beauté. This is one of my most used palettes in my entire collection. And this is one of those mattes that actually swatch good as well. This is a deep, pigmented, saturated, wonderful like red matte, and I love it. This is the kind of red matte that you can deepen up any kind of warm look with. Just look at how these three shades would make such an interesting look. Now I kind of want to do that. That would be such an incredibly cool look, like these three together. This is me just rethinking everything that's going on my face right now and being like, huh. Love this, and I reach for this palette a lot, specifically for this dark red, because it is just absolutely incredible. And if you were looking for warm, bright, but still like, you don't want to have like a warm neutrals palette, but you also don't want to have a rainbow palette. This one, it has all of those warm colors without being brown, but also without being like just bright yellow, bright red. It's just an incredible palette, and I have used this so much, and especially for this color. Love it. And this is gonna be me being a broken record, but this is the Passion in Paris by BH Cosmetics. This is one of my favorite palettes in my collection, and the color that I reach for the most is the dark red. I am wearing red eyeshadow today. I love this one. This is the Grand Palais. Oh my, these are kind of similar, but you can tell that this one is a little bit more like almost like burnt and a little bit less red, and just yeah, they're bringing different things. This is a little bit more on the aubergine side. It's like an aubergine red that's a little burnt. This is more like a muted red, almost like dried blood. Is that a little macabre to say? But like, I just love red eyeshadow. I just love these kind of tones. And yeah, this is just such a beautiful palette as well, in case you were looking for some really dark and yummy tones. And I love red mattes. Sue me. You remember when it was so hard to get a hold of red mattes? I remember that, and we used to like buy singles and compare them. I even think I had a video back in the day on my channel, like the battle of the red eyeshadows. It was a thing. It was hard finding red eyeshadows at the peak where they were the most popular. Let's talk about the palette that I'm wearing today. This look is entirely made of the Colourpop and the Avatar The Last Airbender palette. I love this palette, and I'm gonna say this has really good red matte. You can see the red matte here. This is one color, and then I'm using this one in the outer corner, and then I'm using these two blues, and this one is my favorite blue. And again, if there is a really unique shimmer in a palette that can make me reach for a palette, then that is the color that I want to use, because I have actually reached for this palette outside of YouTube to specifically use this muted light denim shimmer that is just so pretty and so flattering on the lid. It's not chunky, it is not like, it is shimmery but not super sparkly, but it lays good and blends well with other shadows. I mean, you can tell together with this red such a beautiful color, and I've used it so much. And this comes back to that this palette has really good mattes, but when it is a really unique shimmer that really makes me super happy to use, that becomes my favorite. Some of my favorite Nomad palette. This is the Nomad Cosmetics, I think it's called like the Cloud Forest palette, if I'm not totally mistaken. This is such a bright palette. I have so many favorites in this palette. This is so beautiful. Honestly, this is such a beautiful palette. And now that I open it, I'm like, I don't really know which one is my favorite because there are so many good shades in here. But I will say the one that makes the palette for me is that there is a really dark green. And if it's something that I really like I've said, is I like when palettes go from really light to really dark. And this like really dark, yeah, really like mossy, dark mossy green is just a really nice color, and this color scheme is like a grungy rainbow. I'm liking how this is looking, but I'm really loving this one. I'm really loving that palette. And again, a good matte will sell me a palette. If there's any shimmers in there and they're not the most unique stuff in my collection that I would want to reach for again and again, then the mattes are always going to be my default favorite. Let's do a neutral palette. I feel like that could be interesting. This is actually, oh my god, this is actually one of the favorite neutral palettes in my collection. This is the Eternal Eclipse palette by Lunar Beauty. I love this palette for what it is. This is a dramatic and murky and sexy neutral palette, and when I want to do a neutral look, I have reached for this one quite a lot. My favorite shade in this palette is actually this one, that is the black metallic, because I feel it's called Starry Eyes. It's like a charcoaly black metallic shade, and I feel like this could be the start of any good sexy smoky look. And it's always easier to do a smoky look that has a little shimmer in it, because shimmer is always a little bit more forgiving than a matte when it comes to blending. And this one all over the lid, I mean, there's a reason why there's a black metallic in my palette, the Hela palette as well. It's because it's just such a sexy color to make any look, take it over to, I was gonna say to the dark side, whoop, force is strong with this one, but just make it a little bit more sexy. And this one is such a nice, sexy, metallic black, and I have reached for this one a lot. I will say that now that I open this palette, it's usually to use the matte neutrals, but this is still my favorite color in the palette if we're gonna go with the one that like really sells me on the palette. It is a metallic black, but how I use it is probably more with the neutral mattes. But because they're good quality, and when I want a neutral crease, I'll reach for this one. But I can't deny that this is such a sexy color. Am I going to be repetitive? Let's go into one of my favorite palettes by Kaleidos. This is the Astro-Pink palette. Love this palette. Black, turquoise, like really like leaning a little neutral, having, but like this one, the berry matte. Again, we're back to, I love berry mattes as well. We're back to, I love a bright and dramatic warm crease. Look at that. They're so similar. This one is a little bit more pinky, purpley, berry. This one is a little bit more aubergine, cool. Like, I'm trying to justify, but it shows me something, that even though reds were popular, 5 years ago, here I am, still loving red mattes. I just think they're so pretty. Especially, I have green eyes. I love red mattes with green eyes. And finally, we are gonna go into this one, where I technically could use more than one favorite, because this is a palette that has surprised me. This is probably the palette that has surprised me the most this last couple of months, and this is the Unearthly Cosmetics Vitality palette, because this is what I would say is a rainbow palette with a twist. It is pastels, it is brights, it is like more murky, almost grungy tones. There are just a bunch of really good colors, and honestly, I can just pick out a couple of these, and a bunch of these could be my favorites. All of the shimmers are beautiful duochromes. This is just an incredible palette. Incredible palette. I love there's a matte white. It's just so pretty, but something that really makes me excited. Had this had a matte red, it would have been the red, because I will always love a red, don't come for me, but also a matte blue. A really good dark matte blue. Shut the front door. I'll put it up here because like I feel like that is not a good place to swatch. Am I making this harder on me than I should? Hold. That was not a good place to swatch. But you can see such a beautiful color. And again, I don't have a primer, so this is all looking the way that it's looking. If you had seen what I did in 2018, let me just tell you, it didn't look like this. This one has 3 shimmers. 3 shimmers and the rest are mattes. Let me show you how these look on like me doing just b-roll. I'm gonna swatch these in a way that I think that this color story makes sense. So I'm gonna take some creative liberties with how I swatch these and how I put them together. I'm gonna put these together as if this was a palette. And let me tell you, if somebody released this palette, I would buy it. Maybe I would question why there are 3 so similar red shades, but at the end of the day, I'm gonna be like, they're so nice though, they're red, I love them, I'll go for it. Had this been my perfect palette, I probably would have switched out one of the reds for a lighter, like brighter red. That probably would have made this my absolute favorite palette, but honestly, I think that this looks incredible, and it really does emphasize the way that my taste in makeup and the way that my makeup aesthetic has evolved during these years. I am now so into matte eyeshadows. I can go with all matte eyeshadows for weeks and I wouldn't miss a shimmer. I like a shimmer every now and then. I'm having a shimmer on today. I'm really loving it. But if someone told me either mattes or either shimmers, you have to pick one of them, I'd pick mattes, and you can tell. You can tell in this one. I'm just so happy with how they look on my eyes. I'm so happy with how I am able to do different looks with it. And like I said, a good matte will sell me a palette any day of the week. Let me know if you did a product like this, if you took out some of your favorite palettes and you just isolated your favorite shade in each palette, what would you find out? Would you find out that you're like me, that you either want a really light or really dark matte? Because that's technically what we have here. Or would you find something totally different? Because I have definitely people around me, friends, where I know what they would pick out. I mean, Samantha would pick out any mauve matte shade that she could find in a palette. Heather Austin would pick out any sparkly like multichrome in a palette. Karen Harris would pick any green shadow that she could find in a palette. It would just be an arm with green, let's be honest. I would love to hear what you would discover if you were to do something like this. And also let me know if you would like to see the opposite. The worst, like my least favorite shade in some of my favorite palettes. Are you interested in that? Please let me know. I'm trying to revive the YouTube that I had in 2017-18 today. Hopefully you'll enjoy it. Hopefully you're having an absolutely amazing day. Don't forget to subscribe, and I will see you again tomorrow for a new video. Bye!